Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. The translation reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi, how are you? I am a woman who is aged 40 years old. Me and my husband, we are both ritualists. So, Brother Nashi, the first time when my husband told me that he was a ritualist, I thought that, honestly, he was joking. My husband, the reason as to why he became a ritualist, it was because we had this other shop. It was his idea, even though I had given him other ideas when he said that he wanted to start a small business. So he had worked in the construction industry for a very long time, so he thought that everyone just wants to buy like building material. So when he started his shop, the other side there were groceries, then the other side there were building materials. So instead of him buying a lot of groceries to sell, he bought a lot of building materials. So the shop was not like really giving us any profits at all. Then after that, my husband's sister, my sister-in-law, she was in hospital. That was when she told me that she was sick and it was all because of him, because he had just become a ritualist and he was still in the process of sacrificing her. He then came to me and said, my wife, I have been thinking about it and I have seen that without your help, I won't be able to complete these rituals. And I said, please, we do not need to do this. And he said that, Christian or not, it was already too late. I said, what do you mean when you say that it is already too late, Christian or not? He said that he had went to do these rituals in an area in Bindura. And when he was doing those rituals to get rich quick, he had been told that the shrine demanded that he offer our daughter as a guarantee that he will never be able to complete those rituals. If he was told that he needed to offer a guarantee just in case if he will not be able to complete those rituals of him sacrificing his own blood sister, then he had to sacrifice his daughter. When he mentioned that he had been forced to give the traditional healer a guarantee that the ritual was going to be performed when the time comes, I cried, Brother Nashi. I cried so much on that day, so much that I refused to go to church. Even when the kids knocked on our bedroom door and said, Mommy, we are done, let us go to church. I said, no, we are not going to church today. Because I kept on thinking, it was on a Sunday morning when he had told me, and I had been fasting throughout the week. It was not only me, I can say the whole church had been fasting for my sister-in-law who was in the hospital. And now he was telling me that the reason as to why his sister was in the hospital, it was all because of him. He then told me that we had to do this, otherwise we were going to lose our daughter. Is there anyone who is holy amongst your listeners? Is there anyone that is holy? Can your listeners tell me whom amongst them, if presented with this situation, will say it is okay, I am willing to lose my daughter so as to save my sister-in-law? Is there anyone who is holy? I just told myself that this had to be done to save my daughter, to remove my daughter from the list that he had written. He then told me that there was this other little black book, and indeed I had seen that little black book. And this little black book, you know, there are those small New Testament, small Bibles. I had seen one, and when I had opened it up, I saw that it had blank pages and a red one in the middle of the book. So I said, that is weird. I thought that maybe it was a book that he was going to use to write maybe the phone numbers of his customers. He then told me that inside that little black book, each and every night, when I would be fast asleep, he would wake up and he would write the names of all of his relatives, except for our children and I. But he said that he also wrote the name of our daughter. So our daughter, she was the first one on the list, since he had guaranteed that he was going to sacrifice her if he was unable to kill his own sister. So my husband then told me that the little black book, it belonged to that traditional healer. It belongs to his shrine. It was always going to serve as a reminder that these were the terms and the conditions of his rituals. I then agreed. After I had agreed, my husband then said, quickly, my wife, we need to go and speak with that healer right now. So we did. We drove all the way to Bindura. When we arrived at the traditional healer's place, I then saw that my husband, he was no longer the same man that I thought that he was. The things that I heard him saying in that consultation room, they were scary. No woman wants to ever hear their husband saying such things. My husband was inviting the spirit of death. He invited the spirit of death to come to visit his family, to take one by one all that had their names written in that little black book. My husband then offered the spirit of death his sister. He said, "O spirit of death, my daughter, the life of my daughter, I had offered the life of my daughter to you. But now, O spirit of death, as per our terms and conditions, I offer to you my sister." He then pointed at me and said, "This is my witness." When he said, "This is my witness," I said, "Who is your witness? I'm not your witness." Then that traditional healer said, "Be silent, woman." Then my husband continued and said, "This is my witness, for she is my wife. I am married to her legally, and she is the mother of my children." And I was then forced to say an oath to show that indeed I was a witness. I became a witness when my sister-in-law was sentenced to death. As for my sister-in-law, it's really funny the way that my sister-in-law died. She choked herself to death with a chicken bone. My sister-in-law died in a funny way. She was someone who was really sick, who had not eaten for a couple of days. Then she asked one of the nurses, this was before visitation time, she wanted some chicken. Well, in the hospital there was no chicken, it was only cabbage and potatoes. That was all that they were feeding to the patients. The nurse then called my husband to buy chicken licken for her. So during visitation, I went there. As for my husband, he would remain in the car, for he was not allowed to see her whilst she was still alive. So I was the one who would go in there and give her the food. So I gave her the takeaway. We then left, but she did not eat the chicken straight away. She waited until late at night when the nurses were no longer moving around checking on the patients. That was when she thought of eating the chicken. And when she was busy eating, she choked herself with the bone of a chicken. And when we heard that she had passed away, that was when I thought that when we were in Bindura, there was something that was funny that happened. When we arrived at the healer's house, we sat in the queue and we went into the consultation room. So when we were inside the consultation room, I looked outside and I saw that the healer had given one of his assistants an instruction to catch one of the black chickens that were at his compound. And when that black chicken was caught, it was then taken and it was slaughtered. Then they cooked that black chicken. By the time that we were sacrificing, when the sacrifice was being done, that was when the healer called his assistant. And then the assistant came with the chicken thigh. It was brought, it was inside a wooden plate. Then my husband was told to eat the chicken. When my husband started eating, he choked himself, Brother Nash, and I was scared that he was going to die. So I got up because I wanted to help him, because he was crying as he was crawling on the floor. He was unable to breathe. I was scared that he was going to die. The healer then said, "Sit down, woman. Leave him. He won't die." But I said, "My husband is choking." He then looked at me and he said, "If your husband is going to die in my consultation room, then from today I am going to throw away everything, for I will know that my ancestors had abandoned me. I am no longer a healer. You won't die." My husband was choking, struggling, and I was not even allowed to help him. When he was about to die, that was when the healer took his walking stick and hit him very hard on his back, so much that I thought that he had broken my husband's spinal cord. He vomited a big piece of chicken meat, but it was not what he had eaten. He vomited a big piece of meat, but which looked more like beef, but he had eaten chicken. That really shocked me, and that is how my sister-in-law passed away. When my sister-in-law passed away, remember that I was not yet experienced with these things of rituals. But now, as for now, I can do anything. I can go anyway. I am not scared of anything. Even if you say, go to the graveyards at 1 a.m., no, I can do it. I am used to it. I am not scared anymore. But at that time, I was really scared. When my husband said that we were supposed to go and take some soil from the grave, we went and we collected the soil from the grave. As for me, I stayed in the car, but I was sitting on the driver's seat because I was scared being in the car alone when my husband was moving around the graves looking for a grave to take the soil from. So I had my head out of the window, and at the same time I was checking if there was any demon with me in the car so that I can run. And at the same time I was checking if there were any demons that were walking towards the car. But as for now, sometimes when my husband, when he's on his business trips, he can even call me and say, can you go to the grave and take some soil? And I can do it on my own. I'm not scared of anything. After he had collected the soil, he came into the car and he said, my wife, I have never depended on anyone, but now I depend on you now. Because if you do not do this, the spirit of your sister-in-law is going to rise up and fight against us. You see, the way that she died, we are also going to choke ourselves to death. So you need to do this. Do this for your husband. Do this to have a good life. Don't you want to go wherever you want to go to? Having trips to wherever you want to go to. And I said, yes, my husband, I want. And he said, what you have to do is, since you are like the daughter-in-law in our family, and you are the one that will be cooking for everyone at the funeral, I want you to take this soil and mix it with the food. But you have to do it the day that we will arrive with the body from the mortuary. And that is what I did. I was nervous on that day. I had the soil. It was inside a small plastic bag and it was in my bra. I was shaking. So lucky enough, the funeral was supposed to be held at our house in Harare. But then we had to go with her to Murewa. So with the other people, we had since went to the village, and my husband came with the corpse of his late sister. And he deliberately collected the corpse when it was really late in the afternoon, knowing that when they will travel throughout the night. When the body came, it was really late at night and people started crying. You know, in our culture, we have to cry, make a lot of noise. The body is being brought into the compound. So people were crying, walking to where the car was. And I stayed behind and I opened the pots quickly and I poured the soil into the pots. But after that, I could not sleep. I had to take sleeping medication at all the times until my husband returned with me to Bindura. When I was taken there, I had to be strengthened. What I saw, Brother Nashi, people who say that the spiritual world does not exist, I can say that they are living, they are like Alice in Wonderland, who is naive, who does not know how the world operates. I saw a creature, this demonic creature. It was dark, it had horns, and it had one eye that was red, and its mouth, it had a very big mouth, but you could see everything, like at the back of its head, you could see everything. This creature then approached me. When it approached me, it sucked the spirit out of my body. That is how I was strengthened, Brother Nashi. From there on, yes, there were funerals that happened, and we did the same process over and over again, so much that it even started getting boring. You go to the grave, you take the soil, you sneak in whilst you are cooking, then you put the soil so that the spirit of the person won't come haunting you. So it has been many years that me and my husband have been doing this, and my husband is the richest in the family. All of my kids, they studied in South Africa. We took them to very expensive boarding schools in South Africa. 2 of them now are in university. Now the other one is supposed to write her matric next year. They are staying alone there in South Africa. They have a maid who is a white woman, and you can just imagine how much we are paying her. She's the one who takes care of them. We just go there, but not each and every time, because we are supposed to be around, since we have an altar at our house, because this altar wants us to be around at all the times. So if we go to any country, we have to return back home, maybe within a week or so. This is my confession. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our sister. Strange things do happen in this world. Yo.